Welcome to Monk's Temple. Find a comfortable place to rest. Perhaps you're settling in for the night, or maybe you found a quiet moment in a busy day. Wherever you are, allow yourself to be here completely. Feel the weight of your body being supported. Notice the gentle rhythm of your breath, coming and going on its own. There's nothing you need to do right now except listen. Let your eyes soften, or close them if you wish. We're going to explore a map of the heart, drawn from the deepest wells of Buddhist wisdom, but we won't be walking it in a straight line. True understanding circles back on itself, like water finding its way down a mountain. The journey often begins with a whisper, a subtle sense of unease. You might feel it as you lie awake at night, mind racing over tomorrow's tasks. Or in a quiet moment of success, when you achieve a long-sought goal and feel, curiously empty. The Buddha called this dukkha, a word often translated as suffering, but closer to a pervasive sense of dissatisfaction, a feeling that things are not quite right, that something essential is missing. It's the quiet hum of a motor that never turns off. Most of our lives are spent trying to silence that hum by changing the channel, seeking a better job, a different relationship, a new distraction. But the Buddha, in his profound compassion, didn't point to a better channel. He invited us to listen to the hum itself, to understand its source. He taught that this very feeling of lack is not a life sentence, but the first clue on a treasure map leading you back to yourself. Let me share a story from my own life, a moment when this whisper became a shout. Years ago, I worked in a tall glass building. One afternoon, after closing a significant deal, the kind of external victory we're told brings happiness, I stood at the window, looking down at the miniature people and cars. A profound, hollow silence echoed inside me. It wasn't sadness, exactly. It was the stark realization that the ladder I had been climbing was leaning against the wrong wall. All the striving, the late nights, the approval I'd sought, felt as substantial as the reflections in the glass. In that moment, the conventional search for happiness revealed its empty core. That ache, that great doubt, as Zen calls it, was not my enemy. It was the most honest part of me, finally breaking through the noise. It was the beginning of my real search. If this exploration of a deeper, more enduring peace resonates with you, I warmly invite you to subscribe to Monk's Temple. Think of it as planting a flag in this quiet space, making it easier to return whenever you need a reminder of the path home. Now, imagine your mind is not a problem to be solved, but a vast, clear sky. Your natural state is that sky. Open, peaceful, limitless. But from the time we are young, we are taught to focus only on the weather. That cloud is a bad grade. This sunshine is a promotion. That storm on the horizon is a potential failure. We become amateur meteorologists, obsessed with predicting and controlling the weather, believing our happiness depends on it. We forget we are the sky itself, the spacious, unchanging awareness in which all weather systems form, play out, and dissolve. The core teaching of Buddhism isn't about creating perfect, permanent sunny weather. That's impossible. It's about remembering your identity as the sky. From the perspective of the sky, a storm is just a passing phenomenon. It doesn't damage the sky. It happens within it. This shift from identifying with the weather to resting as the sky changes everything. Your anxious thoughts. Just passing clouds. A burst of joy. A brilliant sunset. Deep grief. A heavy, sustained rain. None of it is you. You are the aware space holding it all. The practice, then, is not to stop the clouds, but to widen your perspective. To feel the boundless sky of your awareness that was there before the thought, and will be there after it passes. You are not the content of your experience. You are the conscious container for all of it. I once met a woodworker who taught me this without saying a word. He was restoring an antique table, its surface scarred and stained. I expected him to sand it down aggressively, to remove all marks. Instead, he worked with astonishing gentleness. He cleaned it, oiled it, and carefully smoothed the edges of the deepest scratches. "See," he said, his hand resting on the wood, "the history is what gives it character. My job isn't to make it look new. My job is to reveal the beauty that's already here, where and all. To let the grain sing again." He wasn't fighting the weather of the table's past. He was providing the clear, accepting space, the sky, for its entire history to be seen as part of its wholeness. Our minds are like that table. We want to sand away our anxieties, our regrets, our perceived flaws. But the path of awakening involves a gentle restoration, a kind of compassionate space-making that allows every part of our experience to be integrated, to reveal the beautiful, unique grain of our being. This is where we encounter the Buddha's central teaching on effort. It's called samavayama, right effort. This is not the gritted teeth striving of the ego trying to become spiritually perfect. That's just more weather, a wind of determination blowing through the sky. Right effort is subtler. It's the effortless effort of the sky simply being spacious. In practical terms, it means gently inclining the mind toward what is skillful, toward kindness when irritation arises, toward patience when haste tugs at you, toward presence when distraction calls. It's not a battle. It's a gentle redirection, like guiding a stream with a small, well-placed stone. A wonderful metaphor for this is learning to float in the ocean. When you first try, you panic. You thrash, you fight the water, you try to make yourself float through force. And you sink. The instructor says, "Stop trying. Lean back. Trust the water. Let it hold you." The moment you stop fighting and simply relax into the support that is already there, you float. The ocean was always holding you, your struggle was the only thing pulling you under. Your innate awareness is that ocean. Right effort is the relaxation into it, the cessation of the mental thrashing that keeps you submerged in thought and worry. So we begin here, in this moment, by stopping the fight. Not by achieving a special state, but by ceasing to resist what is already present. The sound you hear, the feeling of your breath, the weight of your body, all are appearing in the vast, clear sky of your awareness. And that awareness is what you most fundamentally are. It is your original home, before the story of your life began. The rest of our journey is about circling this truth, exploring it from different angles, clearing away the forgotten furniture that blocks the view of this endless, welcoming space. Let's take a deeper breath together. In and out. And as you exhale, imagine letting go of any idea of where you should be on a path. There is only this. This breath. This sound. This awareness. Everything else is passing weather. Rest here for a few moments, as the sky of your mind simply observes, without any need to change a single cloud. Let's continue from that place of spacious rest. One of the most beautiful and challenging discoveries on this path is that the peace we seek has a paradoxical relationship with our everyday world. We might have a moment of perfect clarity while watching a sunset, a flash of timeless awareness in meditation, only to lose it completely minutes later when we're stuck in traffic or receive a stressful email. This can feel like failure. We think, I had it, and now it's gone. But Buddhism offers a radical reframe: nothing was gained, and nothing was lost. The clear sky didn't disappear when the storm cloud arrived. You just forgot to look up, beyond the weather. The practice is not about clinging to sunny days, but about cultivating a faith in the sky's constant presence, regardless of the forecast. This is where we engage with the transformative power of mindfulness, or sati. Mindfulness is not just attention. A cat stalking a bird is attentive. Mindfulness is a kind of attention. It is non-judgmental, present moment awareness. It's the act of the sky knowing itself as sky, even while observing clouds. When you feel anger, instead of becoming the storm, I am angry, mindfulness allows you to note, there is anger. This tiny grammatical shift is a movement of cosmic importance. It creates a gap between the aware being that you are and the temporary experience passing through. In that gap, choice is born. You are no longer a puppet jerked by the strings of reactivity. I learned this not from a scripture, but from a beekeeper. I visited her apiary, nervous behind my veil. The air hummed with thousands of bees in what looked like chaotic, dangerous activity. The beekeeper moved with a slow, deliberate grace. The secret, she said, her voice calm amidst the buzzing, is to move with respect, without sudden fear. The bees feel your intention. If you see them as a threat, you become agitated, and they react to that. If you move with a calm, clear purpose, they accept your presence as part of the environment. She opened a hive, her hands steady, and showed me the intricate combs. Your mind is like this hive, she said. Thoughts and feelings buzz with intense energy. If you react with fear or agitation to the buzz, you get stung. If you can approach your own inner world with that same calm, respectful awareness, observing without invading, present without panic, the energy doesn't have to sting. It can just be part of the hive's beautiful, productive work. Mindfulness is beekeeping for the soul. It's the gentle, respectful awareness that allows the buzzing thoughts to be, without letting them dictate your actions. This mindful space is where the heart naturally softens into compassion, or karuna. Often, we think of compassion as something we muster for others after we've fixed ourselves. But Buddhism reveals it flows the other way. The moment you stop fighting your own experience, the moment you bring that beekeeper's calm awareness to your own anxiety or sadness, compassion for yourself spontaneously arises. And from that well, compassion for others effortlessly springs. You see that everyone else is also tending to their own buzzing hive, often with far less calm. You understand their reactive stings not as personal attacks, but as expressions of their own inner turmoil. This doesn't mean you allow harm. The beekeeper wears a veil for protection. You can set boundaries with clarity, but the motivation shifts from hatred to protection, from, I must destroy this threat, to, I must care for this fragile piece. This interconnectedness is the heart of the Buddha's teaching on dependent origination. Nothing exists in isolation. Your mood affects your family. The cashier's bad day affects your interaction. A society's fear affects its laws. We are all nodes in a vast, shimmering web. When you touch one part with mindfulness or compassion, the whole web subtly shivers. Your inner peace is not a private possession, it's a contribution to the collective atmosphere. This is why ethical living, or sila, is not a set of rules imposed by a stern Buddha, but the natural outward expression of an understanding heart. When you know your actions ripple through the web, you naturally wish to cause no harm. You speak truthfully, not because you'll be punished, but because deception frays the connection. You act with generosity, because hoarding assumes separation, and you have seen that is an illusion. Let me share a story about a bridge. In a valley between two villages, there was an old, rickety wooden bridge. For generations, people crossed it cautiously, complaining about its state. Each villager thought, someone should fix this, but it was never their job. One day, a young potter from the north arrived. He used the bridge daily to collect clay from the other side. Instead of complaining, he began, each evening, to replace one rotten plank with a good piece of wood from his own small stockpile. He told no one. At first, no one noticed. Then, a farmer felt the new plank underfoot. A week later, a mother with a stroller crossed more easily. Slowly, others began to bring a plank, or a nail, or a pot of strong paint. Within a year, without a single committee meeting, the bridge was sound and beautiful, decorated with carvings from different families. The potter's quiet, compassionate action, born from his own need to cross without fear, had reminded everyone of their shared need and shared capacity. Your mindful practice is like replacing that first plank. You do it for yourself, to cross your own inner chasms with more stability. But that act of inner repair subtly strengthens the structure for everyone around you. Your calm in a crisis, your patience in a delay, your kindness in a moment of friction, these are the planks you contribute to the shared bridge of our human world. So we see the path is not a lonely ascent to a mountain peak, but a communal restoration of the ground beneath our feet. It begins with turning the beekeeper's calm attention inward, which nourishes self-compassion, which naturally extends to others, which guides our actions toward harmony. Each step is contained within the other. The Buddha's Noble Eightfold Path is often drawn as a wheel, not a ladder, for this reason. Right view supports right intention, which leads to right speech, and so on, each spoke strengthening the others, all turning around the hub of mindful awareness. Take a moment now to feel this web. Feel the contact of your body with the chair or floor, a connection to the earth. Feel the air entering your lungs, a connection to the atmosphere. Acknowledge the countless causes and conditions that brought this sound to your ears, the people, the technology, the electricity. For this instant, don't be a separate entity looking out at a world. Be a conscious point in the web, feeling the gentle tug of connection in all directions. Breathe into that interconnectedness. There is no need to do anything. Just be this aware node, receiving and giving, in the endless, compassionate exchange of existence. As we rest in this sense of connection, we must gently turn to face one of the most persistent guests in the house of our awareness, the self, the I. We spend our lives building, defending, improving, and worrying about this I. It feels so solid, so central. Yet, a cornerstone of the Buddha's wisdom, anatta, or not self, invites us to investigate this feeling directly. This is not a philosophical idea to believe, but an experience to discover. He wasn't saying you don't exist. He was pointing out that what you typically call I is not a single, solid, permanent thing, but a flowing process, a collection of ever-changing elements, body, sensations, perceptions, mental formations, and consciousness. Like a river, it appears continuous, but you can never step into the same water twice. The feeling of a solid self is like mistaking the whirlpool and the river for a permanent, separate object. It has a pattern, a function, but it is made entirely of the river's water and motion. It has no independent existence. This investigation can feel unsettling at first. If I'm not this solid self, what am I? But this inquiry leads to the greatest freedom imaginable. If there's no solid, central thing here to be damaged, then what is there to protect? What is there to anxiously enhance? Much of our suffering comes from the whirlpool's desperate efforts to maintain its distinctive shape against the river's relentless flow. We suffer because we are trying to freeze a process. I witnessed a beautiful lesson in this from a master calligrapher. He was demonstrating a flowing water-style script. His brush moved effortlessly, creating beautiful, swirling characters. I asked him, "How do you plan each stroke so perfectly?" He smiled. "If I plan it, it is dead. The I cannot make this. The ink has its nature. The paper has its texture. The brush has its flexibility. My hand holds the memory of 10,000 movements. And the character itself has an essence that wishes to be expressed. My job is to get the anxious me out of the way, to become the space where the ink, the brush, the paper, and the idea meet. The beauty arises from the meeting, not from a planner." In that moment, he wasn't a self creating art. He was the conscious space where the art happened. Our lives are meant to be that kind of spontaneous, beautiful script. Our suffering arises when the small I tries to grab the brush and control every stroke, fighting the nature of the ink and the paper. This relates directly to the Buddhist understanding of craving and clinging, tanha and upadana. Craving is the whirlpool's effort to pull in pleasant experiences and push away unpleasant ones, trying to stabilize itself. Clinging is the freezing of that effort into a solid stance. I am someone who must have this and avoid that. We cling not just to possessions or people, but to views, to identities. I'm a successful person, I'm a failure, I'm a spiritual seeker. Each clinging is a plank we nail into the idea of a solid self. The path of awakening involves feeling the craving arise, the desire for praise, the aversion to criticism, and instead of automatically acting on it, to simply hold it in the beekeeper's calm awareness. In that space, you see it as just another current in the river, not a command from headquarters. The clinging loosens. The whirlpool relaxes its grip. There is an old story, not from the competitor, but from my own lineage. A student asked the teacher, "How do I let go of myself?" The teacher handed him a ripe tomato. "Hold this," the teacher said. The student held it. Minutes passed. His arm began to ache. "Can I put it down now?" the student asked. "I didn't give it to you to hold," the teacher replied. "I merely offered it. You are the one who chose to cling. We do this all day. The mind offers a worry. We cling to it. It offers an old grievance. We cling to it. It offers a fantasy of the future. We cling to it. Then we complain our arms are tired. Letting go isn't a forceful action. It's the simple, profound recognition, I am choosing to hold this. I can choose to set it down. You set it down not by throwing it away in frustration, but by gently placing it back in the stream of experience, and returning your open hand to the present moment. This work of letting go brings us to the fertile ground of forgiveness, which in Buddhism is less about pardoning a transgression and more about releasing the poison of resentment you yourself are carrying. Holding resentment is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. It is the ultimate act of self-clinging, where you build a prison from the story of how you were wronged and then live inside it. Forgiveness is the decision to walk out of that self-made prison. It doesn't mean what happened was okay. It means you are no longer willing to let it control your present peace. You lay down the heavy shield you've been carrying, not because the battle was good, but because the battle is over and the shield is now only weighing you down. A woman once told me a story that embodied this. Her father, a stern and critical man, had passed away. Going through his things, she found his old workshop ledger. Neat columns recorded every nail, every board, every payment for jobs done decades ago. Tucked in the back, on a fragile slip of paper, was a different list. It said, "Jenny, first step, 14 months. Jenny, said Dada, 18 months. Jenny, rode bike without training wheels, age 6. Jenny, honor roll, 5th grade." Her name. Every milestone. He had never said a word. Her entire narrative of a childhood without love shattered in an instant. The resentment she'd clung to for years wasn't wrong, his criticism had been real, but it was incomplete. It was a single plank she'd mistaken for the whole bridge. Letting go of her rigid story didn't justify his behavior, it liberated her heart from the confinement of a single perspective. It allowed a more complex, human truth, and a profound, posthumous forgiveness, to enter. In your own life, what single plank are you clinging to as the whole truth of a person, a situation, or yourself? As we loosen these clung-to planks of self, something remarkable happens. The sense of being isolated, fragile, begins to soften at the edges. You start to feel more like a verb than a noun, a process of aware experiencing rather than a solid entity having experiences. This is the gateway to the profound peace of shunyata, or emptiness, which we will explore more deeply later. For now, simply feel the possibility. The clenched fist of self-identification, when relaxed, doesn't reveal nothingness. It reveals an open hand, ready to meet the present moment without preconditions. Let's practice this softening now. Bring to mind a minor irritation, a small thing you're clinging to. Feel the mental clench around it. Now, imagine that thought or feeling as a leaf floating down a stream. You are on the bank. You can watch it come, watch it float in front of you, and watch it go downstream. You don't have to jump in and grab it. Just let it float on by. Do this with the next thought. And the next. You are the aware bank, not the leaves in the stream. Rest as that bank, spacious and calm, as the flow of thoughts and sensations continues its endless journey. Let's continue from that space of the open bank, watching the river flow. This practice of releasing our grip naturally leads us to one of the most nourishing qualities on the path, contentment, or santuthi in the Buddhist teaching. Contentment is not passive resignation or settling for less. It is the radical, active choice to find sufficiency in this present moment, exactly as it is, before conditions change. It is the direct enemy of the restlessness that fuels our craving. While our culture shouts that happiness lies in the next purchase, the next achievement, the next experience, contentment whispers that peace lies in fully inhabiting the one you're having right now. Imagine your mind is a cup. The thirsty, craving mind is like a cup with a hole in the bottom. No matter how much you pour into it, praise, possessions, pleasures, it never stays full. It is always looking for the next pour. Contentment is the discovery that the cup is not actually broken. The whole was an illusion, a belief in lack. When you see the cup is whole, you can appreciate the water already within it. You stop straining for the next pour and instead taste the water you have. This is the essence of the Buddhist teaching on the middle way, avoiding both the deprivation of asceticism and the insatiability of indulgence. It is finding the nourishing center where you are no longer driven by lack. I learned about this whole cup from a man who repaired musical instruments. His shop was cluttered and quiet. He once showed me a violin that had been brought to him, its front panel badly cracked. The owner thought it was ruined, he said. But look. He pointed to the interior where he had done his work. He hadn't replaced the wood. Instead, using glue and precise clamps, he had realigned the original pieces, making the seam stronger than the surrounding wood. Now, he said, it has what we call character. The crack gives it a unique voice, a history. It doesn't sound like a new violin. It sounds like this violin. It is complete, not in spite of the crack, but with it included. Contentment is that repair. It is not waiting for the cracks of your life, the imperfections, the unfulfilled desires, to disappear before you allow yourself to be whole. It is the gentle, skilled realignment of your attention to see that you are already a complete instrument, cracks and all, capable of producing the unique music of your life right now, without needing a single external piece replaced. This directly confronts the second arrow, a famous Buddhist teaching. The Buddha said that in life, we are sometimes struck by an arrow, pain is inevitable. This is the first arrow, physical pain, loss, illness, disappointment. But then, he said, we often shoot ourselves with a second arrow. This is our mental and emotional reaction to the first, our resentment, why me, our rage against the pain, our stories about how this ruins everything, our frantic search for someone to blame. The first arrow causes pain. The second arrow causes suffering. Contentment is the practice of not reaching for that second arrow. It is feeling the sharp sting of the first, and instead of adding a narrative of catastrophe, simply bringing a compassionate, present attention to the sensation itself. This hurts. This is the experience of hurt. In that simple, brave attention, the fuel for suffering is not added. I saw a profound example of this in a hospital garden. An elderly man was sitting in a wheelchair, his body clearly frail. He was not looking at his hands or sighing. He was utterly absorbed in watching a hummingbird dart between foxglove blossoms. His face was not marked by the pain or frustration of his condition, the first arrow. It was alight with pure, childlike wonder. He had not shot the second arrow of, "This isn't fair," or, "My life is over." He was fully in the conversation between the hummingbird and the flower. In that moment, he was not a sick man. He was pure awareness, witnessing a miracle. He had found contentment not in the absence of difficulty, but in a profound intimacy with the life that was immediately before him. How do we cultivate this? We start small. The next time you are waiting, in a line, in traffic, for a web page to load, instead of immediately reaching for the phone or boiling with impatience, shooting the second arrow, try this: pause. Feel your feet on the ground. Take one full breath, and look at what is actually around you. The play of light. The pattern on the floor. The sound of distant activity. For those 10 seconds, practice being the man in the garden. Find the hummingbird in your waiting. This is not wasting time. This is reclaiming your life from the narrative of impatience. Each time you do this, you are strengthening the muscle of contentment, of finding the sufficiency of the present sensorium. This practice blossoms into what the Buddhists call mudita, or sympathetic joy. The ability to rejoice in the happiness and success of others. This can be a steep practice. When a colleague gets the promotion we wanted, our cup with a whole mind feels emptier by comparison. But the contented mind, the whole cup mind, sees differently. It understands that joy is not a limited resource. Your colleague's joy does not diminish the potential for your own, any more than lighting their candle dims yours. In fact, it can brighten the room for everyone. Mudita is the deliberate choice to be happy for them. To think, how wonderful for them, and feel that warmth genuinely in your heart. It is the ultimate undoing of comparison, which is just another form of craving. When you practice mudita, you are training your mind to see the world through the lens of abundance, not scarcity. You are recognizing that every expression of happiness, wherever it appears, is a testament to the possibility of happiness itself. So tonight, or tomorrow, try a simple mudita practice. Think of someone you know who is experiencing a genuine happiness, a new baby, a creative success, a personal breakthrough. Instead of a quick, like, or a perfunctory, congrats, pause. Close your eyes. Visualize them in their moment of joy. Feel their happiness as if it were a warm, golden light. Now, see if you can welcome that light into your own heart. Let it glow there. Wish for it to continue for them. May your joy continue. May it deepen. If jealousy arises, acknowledge it as a cloud, and return to the golden light. You are not losing anything. You are practicing the boundless nature of the heart, which can celebrate happiness without owning it. Contentment, then, is the foundation. It is the repair of the cup, the refusal of the second arrow, the finding of the hummingbird in the garden of the ordinary. From this stable, sufficing ground, the other beautiful qualities of the heart, compassion, joy, equanimity, can grow strong and true. You are no longer building your peace on the shifting sands of external conditions. You are planting it in the fertile, eternal present. Let's rest here. Bring to mind one thing in this very moment that is sufficient, that is whole. The air filling your lungs. The sound reaching your ears. The simple fact of awareness itself. There is nothing to add. This cup is not broken. It is full, right now, with the miracle of being alive and conscious. Drink from it deeply. Now, as we rest in that sense of sufficiency, we must gently explore the landscape that often feels like its opposite, the terrain of fear, anxiety, and uncertainty. This is not a detour from the path, it is one of its most sacred provinces. In the brightness of our seeking, we often wish to bypass the shadows. Yet Buddhism teaches with great tenderness that freedom is not found in the absence of fear, but in the nature of our relationship with it. Fear, seen clearly, is not a monster blocking the path, but a frightened child within us asking for attention. The practice is to turn toward it, not with aggression, but with the fearless compassion of a parent. The Buddha taught about the 5 aggregates, form, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness, that create the sense of a self. Fear often arises when we perceive a threat to this fragile construction. But what if we could meet fear not as the commander of our being, but as a passing weather system within the vast sky of awareness. This is the essence of the teaching on impermanence, anicca. Everything that arises, passes away, including fear. The tightness in your chest, the racing thoughts, the sense of dread, they are compositions of fleeting sensations and thoughts. They have a beginning, a middle, and an end. When we believe the story fear tells, that this feeling will last forever, that it defines us, we freeze in its grip. When we see it as a temporary formation, we can create space around it. We can say, "Ah, this is fear. It is here now. It will change." I learned this not in a temple, but in a barn during a thunderstorm. I was helping a farmer friend, and a violent storm blew in. The horses, normally calm, grew skittish, their eyes wide, muscles taut. My friend didn't shout or yank their leads. He moved slowly among them, speaking in a low, steady voice, placing a firm, calm hand on their sweating necks. "They're feeling the pressure drop, hearing the noise," he said. "They can't understand it, so it becomes terror. My job isn't to stop the storm or their feeling. My job is to be the calm in the middle of it, so they remember that not everything is shaking." He was the living embodiment of the sky holding the storm. Our own fear is like those horses. A powerful, sensitive energy confused by sensations it doesn't understand. Our panicked thinking, "This is terrible, I can't handle this," is like shouting in the barn, amplifying the terror. The practice of mindfulness is being that farmer, bringing a steady, reassuring presence right into the center of the fear. I feel this. It is strong. But I am here, holding it. You become the calm that contains the storm, not the storm itself. This points to a profound distinction Buddhism makes. The difference between pain and suffering. Pain is the first arrow, the inevitable physical or emotional hurt of life. Suffering is the second arrow, the tangled web of resistance, story, and aversion we weave around that pain. Fear is often the anticipation of future pain, a preemptive suffering we inflict upon ourselves. The practice is to disentangle the clean sensation of fear, the adrenaline, the tightness, from the catastrophic story it spins. Feel the flutter in the stomach without believing the thought, "This means I will fail." Feel the quickened heartbeat without buying the narrative, "Something is terribly wrong." The sensation is simply energy. The story is optional. I have a friend who is a master rock climber. He once described his relationship with fear on the cliff face. "If I listen to the fear that says, 'You will fall,' I freeze, and then I actually might fall," he said. "So I don't fight it. I acknowledge it. Hello, fear. Thanks for trying to keep me alert." Then I bring my attention back to the most immediate, tiny thing, the texture of the rock under my fingertips in this exact spot. The precise placement of my left big toe. The feeling of my breath moving in and out. Fear exists in the imagined future of the whole climb. But reality exists in this single point of contact, right now. His method is a perfect metaphor for the Buddhist practice of coming back to the present body to escape the fearful mind. Anxiety is future tripping. Peace is present footing. Where are your fingertips right now? What is the sensation? Anchor there. This work requires what the tradition calls viriya, often translated as energy or persistence. It is the courage to turn toward discomfort again and again. It is not a harsh willpower, but a gentle, steadfast returning, like a mother returning to soothe her crying child for the 10th time in a night. Each time you meet fear with awareness instead of avoidance, you are rewiring an ancient neural pathway. You are teaching your nervous system that the feeling of fear does not necessitate the reaction of panic or escape. It can be held, witnessed, and allowed to pass through. There is a story of an ancient monastery built high on a windswept cliff. The winds howled constantly, shaking the shutters, moaning through the cracks. The novices couldn't sleep, couldn't meditate. They begged the abbot to move the monastery. Instead, he gave them each a simple task: to go and listen to the wind, not as a nuisance, but as a teacher. To distinguish the high whistle from the low groan. To feel where it touched their skin. To hear it not as an enemy to their peace, but as the very voice of the landscape they inhabited. Slowly, a transformation occurred. The wind didn't change. Their relationship to it did. It became the constant breath of the mountain, a lullaby, a reminder of impermanence itself, always changing, never the same. Their fear and irritation turned into intimacy and awe. Your anxiety, your chronic worries, are that wind. The practice is not to stop the wind, that is impossible, but to change your relationship to it. To listen to its messages without believing its threats. To feel its power without being knocked over. To learn its patterns, and in doing so, find a deeper, unshakable stillness at your core. So, in this moment, if there is any layer of worry, anxiety, or low-grade fear present, try this. Don't try to make it leave. Place a gentle hand on your heart or your belly. Feel the physical life beneath your hand. Now, in your mind's eye, imagine your fear as that frightened horse, or as the wind outside the window. Send the message, it's okay. I feel you. You are allowed to be here. Breathe into the place where you feel the sensation most strongly. You are not breathing to dissolve it, but to offer space around it. With each in-breath, create a little more room. With each out-breath, soften just a bit. You are the farmer in the barn. You are the monk listening to the wind. You are the climber focusing on the one point of contact. Fear may remain, but you are no longer at war with it. You are holding it in the boundless, compassionate sky of your awareness. And in that holding, you will find that the fear itself begins to change, to lose its solidity, to become just another part of the ever-shifting, beautiful, and ultimately harmless weather of your being. Take a few breaths with that. In, creating space. Out, softening. As we learn to create space for our storms, we naturally arrive at a quiet, powerful crossroads, the place of choice. This is where Buddhist wisdom moves from philosophy into the artistry of daily living. Every moment presents a fork, not in the road, but in the heart. Will we react from old habit, from the clenched fist of fear or craving? Or will we respond from the open hand of awareness? This moment-to-moment choosing is the cultivation of karma in its truest sense, not as fate, but as intentional action. The Buddha taught that karma is volition. It is the intention behind the thought, the word, the deed. It is the seed from which our future experience, the fruit, grows. To be mindful is to become the wise gardener of your own intentions, planting seeds of peace, clarity, and kindness, rather than seeds of confusion, reactivity, and harm. This is not about perfection. It is about direction. A boat crossing a vast ocean doesn't sail in a perfectly straight line. It is constantly corrected by the navigator, adjusting for wind and current. Your practice is that continual, gentle correction. You notice you've drifted into irritation, you correct with a breath and a softening. You notice you've spoken harshly, you correct with a sincere acknowledgement. The path isn't drawn with an unwavering line, but with a million tiny, compassionate adjustments back toward true north, which is always the heart of wisdom and care in the present moment. I saw this embodied by a master sushi chef in a tiny Tokyo restaurant. There were no menus. He would simply observe each customer. Their energy, their pace, their expressions, and then select a piece of fish, form the rice, and present it. When a hurried businessman sat down, the chef gave him a simple, strong tuna. For a weary woman, he prepared something delicate and sweet. For me, a curious foreigner, he offered something unusual, a challenge. I asked him later how he decided. He said, "The fish is the same. The rice is the same. But the person is different. My job is not to impose my idea of a perfect meal. My job is to meet the person who is here, right now, with what I have. That is the only correct choice. Our life is that restaurant. Each moment, a new guest arrives, an emotion, a person, a task. We have our ingredients, our awareness, our ethics, our capacity for kindness. The art of right action and right livelihood is to meet that specific moment with the most appropriate, nourishing response we can muster, not from a script, but from a deep, present moment listening. This art requires us to develop discernment, or prajna, wisdom that sees things as they truly are, not as we wish or fear them to be. Discernment is the light that allows us to see the fork in the heart clearly. It helps us distinguish between a wholesome desire, like the desire to help, and an unwholesome craving, like the desire to control. It helps us see when our generosity is actually a bid for approval, or when our peace is actually a form of numbness. This wisdom grows not from thinking harder, but from seeing more clearly. It is the fruit of sustained mindfulness, which cleans the lens of perception. There is a story from my own training. My teacher had a simple, weathered stone on his desk. One day, frustrated by my lack of progress, I said, "I feel like I'm just hitting my head against a wall." He picked up the stone and asked, "What is this?" "A stone," I said. He turned it over. "And this side?" "Still a stone." He said, "But from this angle, I see a fossil of a leaf. From this, a vein of quartz. From this, it fits perfectly in my palm. Is it a wall, or is it a universe?" Your practice is not about breaking through a wall. It is about turning the stone of this moment over and over in the light of your attention, until you see every facet. What you call a problem is just one angle. Keep looking. Discernment is this turning. That difficult emotion. Turn it over. See it as sensation. As energy. As a message. As impermanence. As a teacher. It is not one thing. It is a universe, and seeing its facets frees you from the single, solid story of problem. This brings us to one of the most liberating applications of this wisdom, in communication, or right speech. So much suffering is woven with words. Right speech is not about being nice. It is about being true, helpful, and kind, and knowing when silence is the truest, most helpful, and kindest option. Before speaking, we can learn to pause in that space of discernment and ask, is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? This tiny checkpoint is a fortress of peace. It stops the reactive arrow of gossip, of harsh truth, of unnecessary opinion. It turns communication from a leakage of energy into an intentional gift. I remember a community mediator who worked with feuding neighbors. Their conflict was a tangled knot of complaints about fence lines and noise. She didn't listen to solve the fence problem. She listened for the unmet need. After hours, she reflected back not their positions, but their fears. So, Mr. Jones, beneath your anger about the bamboo, you feel your privacy and safety are being invaded. Mrs. Chen, beneath your frustration about the complaint, you feel your efforts to create beauty are being rejected and disrespected. For the first time, they weren't hearing attacks, they were hearing the hidden hurts of the other. The fence issue was solved in 10 minutes once those needs were acknowledged. Right speech is this kind of mediation for our daily life. It seeks to hear and address the unmet need, in ourselves and others, rather than just reacting to the surface complaint. It speaks to the heart of the matter, not to the noise around it. So how do we live this? Start with the pause. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space lies our freedom and our power to choose. Today, create that space deliberately. When the phone pings, pause before grabbing it. When someone says something provocative, take a breath before replying. In that pause, touch the sky of your awareness. Feel the ingredients you have to work with. Then, from that space, choose the response that best meets the moment, not the one that merely repeats the past. You are the chef, the mediator, the gardener. This moment is your guest, your neighbor, your seed. Meet it with the artistry of your conscious, compassionate choice. Let's practice that pause now. For the next minute, just listen to the sounds around you. No need to label or follow them. Just let them be. And with each sound, practice not choosing to think about it. Just hear. In the space between the sound and your thought about it, there is pure freedom. Rest there. From that space of conscious choice, we can now turn our attention to a force that shapes our world as profoundly as any intention, the force of habit. In Pali, this is sana, the perceptual and mental formations that condition our reality. We are creatures of pattern. Our neural pathways are like deer trails in a forest. The more we travel them, the deeper and more defined they become. Much of our suffering is not caused by single events, but by the well-worn, unconscious trails our minds automatically take, the trail of self-criticism, the trail of worry, the trail of resentment. The Buddha's path is, in essence, a practice of conscious path-making. It is the deliberate, patient work of forging new trails of mindfulness, compassion, and wisdom, until they become the default routes through the landscape of your mind. This work requires immense kindness. You cannot bully your mind out of its old trails. If you try to block the deer trail with a fallen log, the deer will simply go around. You must make the new path more appealing, more open, more nourishing, more peaceful, and then, with gentle persistence, guide your attention to walk it, again and again. Every time you notice you've slipped into the old groove of anxiety and you gently bring your attention to your breath, you are walking the new trail. Every time you feel the pull of gossip and you choose silence or a kind word, you are widening the new path. This is the heart of bhavana, mental cultivation or meditation. You are not just sitting in silence, you are a landscape architect for your own consciousness. I witnessed this principle in an unexpected place, an old, overgrown botanical garden that was being restored. The head gardener showed me a section that had been taken over by a tough, invasive vine. The previous keeper just chopped it back every year, she said. But it always returned stronger. I'm taking a different approach. She wasn't just removing the vine. She was carefully planting native shrubs and flowers that would thrive in that same soil and sunlight. She tended these new plants daily, giving them the best conditions. The vine thrives in emptiness, she explained. It can't compete with a healthy, dense, diverse ecosystem. I'm not fighting the old path. I'm growing a new, more beautiful forest right over top of it. Your mind is that garden. The invasive vines are your habitual reactive patterns. The daily practice of mindfulness, loving kindness, and ethical reflection is the planting of native, wholesome species. You don't wage war on the anger, you cultivate the patience that eventually crowds it out. You don't hate the fear, you nurture the courage and trust that grows in its place. This understanding illuminates the Buddhist concept of the conditioned and the unconditioned. Our habits, our personalities, our thoughts, these are all conditioned phenomena. They arise based on causes and are subject to change. We often mistake this conditioned, shifting self for who we truly are. But the Buddha pointed to the unconditioned, nirvana, not as a distant heaven, but as the nature of the awareness that is aware of all these conditions. It is the open sky itself, not the weather patterns. The habits are the weather. Your practice is not to create perfect weather, but to establish such a deep, abiding intimacy with the sky that you are no longer confused by the storms. You know them to be temporary, insubstantial, and not yourself. There is an old parable about a clear mountain lake. For generations, people from a village believed a fierce water dragon lived in its depths, based on strange ripples and shadows they saw. They lived in fear, never swimming or drinking directly from it. One day, a curious child, too young to know the story, waded in. The villagers screamed in horror. But the child splashed and laughed, and seeing this, others slowly followed. They discovered that the dragon was just the interplay of light on the water, the shadows of drifting logs, the movement of large but harmless fish. The dragon was a story, a habit of perception that conditioned their entire relationship to the lake. Your deepest habits of mind, the "I'm not enough" story, the world is threatening narrative, are that dragon. Meditation and mindful inquiry are the process of wading into the lake of your direct experience to see for yourself what is truly there. You discover that the monster is made of shadows and stories, and in that discovery, the habit of fear loses its power. But how do we work with a habit in the heat of the moment, when the old trail feels like a rushing gully? We use what I call the 3-pause practice. First, pause the action. When you feel the habitual impulse, to snap, to reach for the phone, to spiral into worry, if you can, literally stop. Put down the utensil. Sit back in the chair. Freeze for 3 seconds. This breaks the automaticity. Second, pause the story. The habit is always propped up by a mental narrative. He always does this. This proves I'm a failure. Recognize that as just a story, a conditioned tape playing. Label it. The old "I'm disrespected" story. Don't argue with it, just see it as a thought. Third, pause into sensation. Drop your attention from the spinning mind into the body. Where do you feel this habit energetically? A clench in the jaw? A heat in the chest? A hollow in the gut? Breathe directly into that sensation with curiosity, not with a goal to change it. This threefold pause, action, story, sensation, transforms the habit from an unconscious compulsion into a conscious object of investigation. You are no longer the deer on the trail. You are the gardener observing the trail from a new vantage point. I knew a recovering musician who had a habit of crippling stage fright. His old trail was, feel nervous, think I'm going to fail, then drink to calm down. He used this 3-pause practice. On stage, feeling the panic rise, he would first pause the action. He wouldn't run off or reach for a drink. He'd just stand still. Then, he'd pause the story. This is the "I'm a fraud" story. Then, he'd pause into sensation. He'd feel the flutter in his belly and send his breath there. I'm just breathing with this fluttering, he'd tell himself. He discovered the fluttering was just energy, intense but not dangerous. Over time, that same energy began to feel like excitement, then like aliveness, then like a connection to the audience. He didn't eradicate nervousness. He changed his relationship to it by forging a new trail of mindful, embodied presence right through the center of the old fear. So tonight, identify one small, harmless but unconscious habit. Perhaps reaching for your phone first thing in the morning, or a critical inner comment you make when you look in the mirror. Tomorrow, when it arises, apply the 3-pause practice. Stop. See the story. Feel the sensation. Don't judge yourself if you forget. This is path making. It's slow, it's messy, and every conscious pause, however brief, is a step on your new trail through the forest of your mind. Let's end this part by feeling the potential of a new path. In your mind's eye, see an old, dark trail representing a habit you'd like to soften. Now, see a new trail branching off it, dappled in sunlight, leading to a peaceful clearing. With your next breath, imagine taking one step onto that new, sunlit path. Feel the possibility underfoot. The marketplace. The ordinary world. The place where you began, weary and searching. This is not where the path ends in failure, but where it flowers into its true purpose. After all the looking, for the ox, for footprints, for peace, you realize you were not a seeker on a path at all. You were the very ground upon which the seeking walked. The Buddha's most revolutionary message was not a destination to reach, but a reality to recognize. Nirvana is not elsewhere. It is the nature of this very mind when it is free from grasping and aversion. It is the water realizing it is the ocean. The journey of 1,000 miles concludes with taking off your shoes and feeling the familiar, welcoming earth of your own backyard. This final realization is often met with a quiet smile, a gentle release of a breath you didn't know you were holding. It carries a deep, unshakable contentment that doesn't depend on anything being different. The Japanese poet Ryokan, a hermit monk, captured this beautifully. He lived in a tiny hut, owning almost nothing. One evening, a thief broke in only to find the hut empty of anything worth stealing. Ryokan returned and found the thief fleeing. "You have come such a long way," Ryokan called after him, "please do not go away empty-handed." He took off his own ragged robe and gave it to the man. That night, he sat naked, watching the moon. "Poor fellow," he mused, "I wish I could have given him this beautiful moon." His peace was not in possessions, not in security, not in conditions. It was in the moon, in the nakedness, in the boundless heart that could meet even violation with generosity. He was home, and he knew that home could never be stolen. This is the essence of what the Buddha taught about the unconditioned. You have spent a lifetime trying to arrange the conditions perfectly. The right job, the right relationship, the right state of mind. But peace lies in touching that within you which is untouched by any condition, the awareness that is present whether you are sick or healthy, praised or blamed, gain or loss. Like the sky, it receives all clouds but is never stained by them. To realize this is to be truly invulnerable, not because you have built a stronger fortress, but because you have discovered you were never the fortress to begin with. You were the open space. I met a woman once who embodied this return. She ran a small, struggling bookstore in a forgotten strip mall. The business was barely viable. Yet, her shop was a sanctuary. People didn't come just for books, they came for the silence, the smell of paper, the way she would hand you a volume with a knowing look, as if she'd been keeping it just for you. I asked her if she worried about closing. She said, "When I bought this place, I was looking for a business. What I found was a purpose. My purpose is to be here, exactly as I am, and to offer this quiet corner. If the business ends, that purpose will simply find another form. This," she gestured to the crowded shelves, the worn armchair, "is just one beautiful expression of it." She wasn't attached to the form. She was rooted in the essence of offering peace, one quiet corner at a time. She had ridden the ox home, and was now simply tending her garden, playing her flute in the ordinary marketplace of strip malls and overdue bills. So what does this mean for you, right now? It means the practice is complete when it becomes irrelevant. You may still sit in meditation, but it is no longer something you do to get somewhere. It is something you are, a natural expression of abiding in awareness. You may still be mindful, but it is no longer a technique. It is the effortless clarity of being present. The whip and rope, the tools of discipline and striving, are laid down. You are not practicing Buddhism. You are being what the Buddha pointed to, awake, compassionate, and free, right in the middle of your human life. This freedom expresses itself as a radical simplicity and a boundless heart. You help others not because you're supposed to, but because it is the natural overflow of your own fulfillment, like a spring feeding a stream. You meet sorrow with a compassion that doesn't falter because you know sorrow's true, empty nature. You meet joy with a delight that doesn't cling because you know joy is a gift, not a possession. You move through the world barefoot and naked of breast, utterly authentic, with nothing to prove and nothing to hide. Your very presence becomes a quiet invitation for others to remember their own wholeness. There is a final story. An old master was asked by his students, "What do you do now that you are enlightened?" He thought for a moment and said, "I chop wood." I carry water. The students, disappointed, said, "But Master, that's what everyone does. What's the difference?" The Master smiled. "Ah. Before, I chopped wood to get to the water. I carried water to get to the wood. Now, I chop wood, and I carry water. The search is over. The great journey of awakening culminates in this. You chop wood, and you carry water. You wash the dishes. You answer the email. You hold the hand of someone who is suffering. You laugh with a friend. But now, there is no hidden agenda, no secret search for something more. The sacred is not hidden within the ordinary. The ordinary is revealed as the sacred. The wood and the water, the joy and the sorrow, are all the radiant, impermanent, beautiful expressions of the boundless awareness that you are. You are home. You have always been home. The peace you sought was the seeker. The love you wanted is the heart that wants. The freedom you dreamed of is the consciousness reading these words. So rest. Truly rest. Not as a prelude to more seeking, but as the living truth of arrival. Let your life unfold from this knowing. Let your actions spring from this fullness. Let your heart meet the world from this unshakable, gentle, ordinary peace. Thank you for walking this path with me. May the peace and freedom that are your true nature guide, nourish, and illuminate your every step. Good night. Be at peace.